Hello, it is Laurel Ann here with the season finale. It's my best books of 2019! I set myself the challenge and limited this list to 5 books. I read 58 books this year, which I'm really happy about. I know it's like a really low number for people who make videos on BookTube, but it's way more than I have ever read in a year in my life. So I'm really excited about it. So 5 books is a little bit under 10% of what I read, and that just seems like a reasonable ratio of favorites to not favorites. But it was really tricky because I liked a lot of books that I read this year quite a lot. This is in sort of a vague order from my least most favorite to my favorite. In the number 5 position, I have Delusions of Gender by Cordelia Fine. This is a nonfiction book that essentially just challenges the idea of ingrained differences in the mental processes of males and females. Throughout the book, she shows how we have a lot of data to back up the claim that gender is mostly the result of socialization. And she also takes a close look at a lot of these psychology and neuroscience studies that often get quite a lot of attention that claim that these differences are inherent and genetic, and shows how in many cases they don't really hold up to scrutiny. This book is really carefully researched, it's written in a way that's very accessible, and it's often just very, very funny as well. The reason I have this book on my list is that this has really changed the way I look at a lot of things. I had always, of course, kind of rolled my eyes at the pink and blue of gender reveal parties, but I had kind of swallowed, in a lot of ways, the idea that, like, men are better at looking at the big picture, they're better at spatial thinking and math, and women are better empathizers. This book, like, right from the beginning showed me that actually the differences in those skills are not statistically significant. There are also a couple of chapters in this book about how these ideas can end up being a self-fulfilling prophecy, and I think that has kind of helped me to approach certain tasks in my life in a different way that hopefully will help me in my life. Hi, I'm just cutting in to say that the way I described that book just now made it sound like it's kind of turfy, but in reality, Cordelia Fine's not really subscribing to like gender critical theory. What she's questioning in this book is more about the idea of male and female traits, and I don't think I explained that very well, so I just wanted to set the record straight. Okay, back to the video. Number 4 is Lenny by Max Porter. I talked about this in my mid-year favorites, so briefly, this is the story of what happens in a small village when a local boy named Lenny goes missing. The story is primarily told through the perspectives of Lenny's parents and a family friend called Pete, but we also get the perspective of this sort of like mythical, fae, elfin creature called Dead Papa Toothwort, and he reports a lot of conversations that he overhears, so in a way the entire village sort of becomes a character in and of itself. I have just never read a book like this, and that was very impressive to me. I think Porter is really trying to push the boundaries of what the written word can do. This book is very genre bending, and he even plays with how a text can look and how that can change the reading experience. I wish I had a copy here. I got it from the library, so I can't show you, but maybe I will be able to insert some pics of what the text looks like because it's really interesting. On top of being a masterpiece of form, it also is really emotionally effective, and that makes it enjoyable, not just impressive. I will warn that this is very different and probably won't work for everybody. I think when you hear that it's about a boy who goes missing, you think that it might be sort of thriller adjacent, but this has more in common with the works of T.S. Eliot than Gillian Flynn. So just putting it out there that this won't work for everybody, but it's my 4th favorite book of the year. Alright, so number 3 is appropriately 3 Women by Lisa Taddeo. This is a nonfiction novel about 3 women, and it focuses on their sex lives and their relationships with different men. This, I think, took Taddeo like 8 to 10 years to research and write, and I just find that very admirable that she wanted so badly to tell these stories. It's written so beautifully, it's so easy to forget that it's nonfiction. But I think the biggest reason why I liked this is that it really prompted a lot of self-reflection, and I think it helped me understand a lot of things that some of my friends have gone through. And I think it helped me to become a little bit more empathetic with the way some women interact with men. So this is the kind of nonfiction where you may not feel like you're learning anything about the world. You're not going to learn about women. You're not going to learn about sex. But I think through reading these three women's stories, you will understand these things a little bit better. Alright, so my second favorite book of the year was In Our Mad and Furious City by Guy Gunnaratne. This is the story of a council estate in northwest London where a soldier has just been murdered in a crime that appears to be related to Islamic extremism. And this is set in, I think, the 2 or 3 days following this event, as seen through the eyes of 5 different characters who live on the estate. The writing in this book is absolutely incredible. Every character has such a distinct voice. Guy Gunnaratne, I think, has executed multiple perspectives better than anybody else I have ever read, which is a big statement. Multiple perspectives are pretty common. But it was just unbelievable how well he was able to delineate between these 5 characters. More than that, I think this book is just really, really important. It's very much an examination of the immigrant and poor experiences in the UK and in London in particular. Gunnaratne is not himself an immigrant, but he is the son of 2 immigrants, and he also grew up poor on a UK housing estate. I think he just gives these people a voice that is so very nuanced and real. I've been thinking about this book a lot with the controversy around Janine Cummin's American Dirt. I read an article in the LA Times by a writer named Esmeralda Bermudez who had one quote in particular that I think just really embodies why this book and others like it are so important, which I will read to you. So it goes, in a long process that many writers of color know all too well, where the best of our stories are frequently sanitized, devalued, tropicalized, manipulated, shrunk down, and hijacked. I just think that this book, In Our Mad and Furious City, does the opposite of that. It amplifies these people's stories, and it breaks my heart to see how narrowly read this book is. It has like 2,000 ratings on Goodreads, so please just read this book. And now on to my very favorite book of the year. It will probably come at no surprise. It is Normal People by Sally Rooney. This is the story of 2 young people, Connell and Marianne, and the ups and downs of their relationship starting in their final year of high school and ending at the end of university. Rooney is just truly a master of character. They are just so tangible and so flawed, often to the point of almost being unlikable, but you can always understand where they're coming from and how all their actions are really rooted in their characters and their experience. Her books are also very political in nature, but her commentary is very subtle. It's often almost ambient in the background of her stories, as it is in real life. This book, for example, because Marianne is from a wealthy family and Connell comes from a poorer background, comments on how capitalism really has a hand in our interpersonal relationships and how financial inequality can create social inequality, even in cases when we are very intimately involved with a person. I also love her writing style. It's very pared down and precise. This book, like several of the others I've mentioned here, is important to me because it shaped the way I think about the world, and I often think about this when thinking about things in my personal life. And like, isn't that kind of what books are here for? I hope you enjoyed hearing about my top 5 books of the year. I was gonna put some honorable mentions in here, but then I was just listing way too many, so I stopped myself from doing that. Please let me know in the comments what were some of your favorite books of the year. Like and subscribe if you want. And yeah, thanks for hanging out with me. Bye. And I just want to be able to write like this, and I never will be able to. So let's end on a note about me being depressed about my lack of creative abilities.